Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Wish you a very good day and welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing very well. So, today we are back to our chapter number 7, the year of the elephant. At the time, the Yemen was under the rule of Abyssinia, and an Abyssinian named Abraha was vice regent. He built a magnificent cathedral in Sana'a, Sana'a, hoping thereby to make it supersede Makkah as the great place of pilgrimage for all Arabia. He made it with the marble brought to it from one of the derelict places of the Queen of Sheba, and he set up courses in it of gold and of silver, and pulpits of ivory and ebony. And he wrote to his master, the Negus, I have built the church, O king, the like of which was never built for any king before today, and I shall not rest until I have diverted unto it the pilgrimage of the Arabs. Nor did he make any secret of his intention, and great was the eager of the tribes throughout Hijaz and Najd. Finally, a man of Kinana, a tribe akin to Quraysh, went to Sana'a for the deliberate purpose of defiling the church, which he did one night and then returned safely to his people. When Abraha heard of this, he vowed that in revenge he would raise the Kaabah, Nauzubillah, to the ground. And having made his preparations, he set off for Makkah with a large army, in the van of which he placed an elephant. Some of the Arab tribes north of Sana'a attempted to bar the way, his way, but the Abyssinian put them to fight and captured their leader, Nawfal, of his tribe of Khatab. By way of ransom for his life, he offered to act as a guide. When the army reached Taif, the men of Tawakkul came out to meet them, afraid that Abraha might destroy their temple of Allah in mistake for the Kaabah. They hastened to point out to him that he had not yet reached his goal, and they offered him a guide for the reminder of his march. Although he already had none, he accepted their offer. But the man died on the way, about 2 miles from Makkah, approximately, at a place called Mughammis, and they buried him. Afterwards, the Arabs took to stoning his grave, and the people who live there still commit to this day. Abraha halted at Maghamis and sent on a detachment of horse to the outskirts of Makkah. They took what they could on the way and sent back their plunder to Abraha, including 200 camels, which were the property of Abdul Muttalib, Quraysh, and other neighboring tribes, had a council of war and decided that it was useless to try to resist the enemy. Meanwhile, Abraha sent a messenger to Makkah, bidding him to ask for the chief man there. He was to tell him that had not come to fight, but only to destroy the temple, and he wished to avoid all the bloodshed. He must come to Abyssinian camp. There he there had been no official chief of Quraysh since the time when their uh, privileges and responsibilities had been divided between the houses of Abdul Dar and Abdul Manaf. But most people had their opinion as to which of the chiefs of the clans was, in fact, if not by right, the leading man of Makkah. And on this occasion, the messenger was directed to the house of Abdul Muttalib, who, together with one of his sons, went back with the messenger to the camp. When Abraha saw him, he was so impressed by his appearance that he rose from his royal seat. That he rose from his royal seat to greet him and had a favor to ask. Abdul Muttalib replied that the army had taken 200 of his camels and he asked that they should be returned to him. Abraha was somewhat surprised at the request and said that he was disappointed in him, that he should be thinking of his camels rather than his religion, which they had now come to destroy. Abdul Muttalib replied, MashaAllah, I am the Lord of the camels, and the temple likewise hath a Lord who will defend it. He cannot defend it against me, said Abraha. We shall see, said Abdul Muttalib. But give me my camels. And Abraha gave orders for the camels to be returned. Abdul Muttalib returned to Quraysh and advised them to withdraw to the hills above the town. Then he went with some of his family and others to the sanctuary. They stood beside him, praying to God for his help against Abraha and his army. And he himself took hold of the metal ring in the middle of the Kaabah door and said, O God, thy slave protect his house. Protect thou the house. Having thus prayed, he went the others to join the rest of Quraysh in the hills at point where they could see what took place in the valley below. The next morning, Abraha made ready to march into. The next morning, Abraha made ready to march into the town, intending to destroy the Kaabah and then return to Sanam by the way they had come. The elephant, richly caparisoned, was led into the front of the army, which was already drawn up, and when the mighty animals reached his position, his keeper Unas turned him the same way as the troops were turned, that is towards Makkah. But Naufal, the reluctant guide, had marched most of the way in the van of the army with Unas, and had learned from him some of the words of command which the elephant understood. While while the head of Unas was turned to watch for for the signal to advance, Naufal took hold of the great ear and conveyed into it a subdued but intense imperative to kneel. Thereupon, to the surprise and dismay of Abraha and the troops, the elephant slowly and deliberately knelt himself down to the ground. Unas ordered him to rise, but Nofil's words had coincided with a command more powerful than that of any man, and the elephant would not move. They did everything they could to bring him to his feet. They even beat him about the head with iron bars and stuck iron hooks into his belly, but he remained like a rock. Then they tried the stratagem of making the whole army turn about and march a few paces in the direction of the Yemen. He at once rose to his feet, turned around, and followed them. Hopefully, they turned round about again, and he also turned. But no sooner was he facing Makkah than again he knelt. This was the clearest of portents not to move one step further forward. But Abraha was blinded by his personal ambition for the sanctuary he had built and by his determination, Nauzubillah, to destroy its great rival. If they had turned back then, perhaps they would all have escaped disaster. But suddenly it was too late. The western sky grew black. The western sky grew black, and a strange sound was heard. Its volume increased as a great wave of darkness swept upon them from the direction of the sea, and the air above their heads, as high as they could see, was full of birds. Survivors said that they flew and with a flight like that of swifts, and each bird had three pebbles the size of dried peas, one in its beak and one between the claws of each foot. They swooped to and fro over the ranks, pelting as they swooped, and the pebbles was so hard and launched with such velocity that they pierced even coats of mail. Every stone found its mark and killed its man, for as soon as a body was struck, its flesh began to rot, quickly in some cases, more gradually in others. Not everyone was hit, and amongst those spared were Nas and the elephant. But all were terror stricken. A few remained in the Hijaz and earned a livelihood by shepherding and other work. But the main part of the army returned in disorder to Sana'a. Many died by the wayside, and many others, Abraha included, died soon after their return. As to Nawfal, he had slipped away from the army while all attention was concentrated on the elephant, and he made his way uncatched to the hills above Makkah. After the day Quraysh was called by the Arabs the people of God, and they were held in even greater respect than before, because God had answered their prayers and saved the Kaabah from destruction. They are still honored, but rather on account of a second event. No doubt, not unconnected with the first, which took place in that same year of the elephant. Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, was not in Makkah at the time of the miracle of the birds. He had gone for trade to Palestine, and Syria with one of the caravans, and on his way home he had lodged with his grandmother's family in Yathrib, and there he had fallen ill. The caravan went on without him to Makkah, and when it brought the news of his illness, Abdul Muttalib sent Harith to accompany his brother home as soon as he should be well enough to travel. But when Harith arrived at the house of his Yathrib cousins, they answered his greetings with the commiserations, and he knew at once that his brother was dead. There was great grief in Makkah. When Harith returned, Amina's one consolation was the unborn child of her dead husband, and her solace increased at the time of her delivery drew near. She was conscious of a light within her, and one day it shone forth from her, and one day it shone forth from her so intensely that she could see the castles of Bosra and Syria. And she heard a voice say to her, "Thou carriest in their womb the Lord of this people, and when he is born, say, I place him beneath the protection of the one from the evil of every envier. Then name him Muhammad." Some weeks later, the child was born. Amina, salamu alayha, was in the home of her uncle, and she sent word to Abdul Muttalib, asking him to come to see him, come to see his grandson. He took the boy in his arms and carried him to the sanctuary and into the holy house. where he prayed a prayer of thanksgiving to God, Allah, for his gift. Then he brought him once more to his mother, but on the way he showed him to his own household. He himself was shortly to have another son by Amna's cousin Hala. At the moment, his youngest son was the 3 years old Abbas, who now met him at the door of his house. This is the brother. Kiss him, he said, holding out to him the newborn baby. And Abbas kissed him. Thank you so very much. Today's chapter was, I loved it and I liked it. And thank you so very much for being with me. And please do not forget to subscribe my channel. And rest assured that I'll be with you, inshallah, and reading more chapters, and inshallah, very soon, new book as well. And wish you a great day, and assalamu alaikum.